Demon hunters, warring gods, and forgotten worlds await with T&M Comics. Click the links below to enter their fantastical realm. Greetings, mortals. Welcome to another session, yada yada, you know the drill. I'm trying to keep a low profile right now because I've got a relatively decent subject for today's case, and this being hell, that always comes with drawbacks. In this instance, the drawback is the movie risks attracting the attention of a certain... Well, so much for that idea. Salutations and blessings upon thee. Hi, Donna. Goodness, such a cold welcome for such a hot climate. One would think you weren't happy to see me. You said it, not me. What are you doing here? As if I couldn't guess. What? I was just taking a stroll around the Celestio Infernal neighborhood, and I thought I would just pop in and, oh my, what is that on your docket? Nothing. Can it be that you are reviewing The Phantom of the Paradise, the 1974 cult classic written and directed by Brian de Palma and starring Paul Williams and Jessica Harper? Even if I was, and I'm not saying that I am, what is that to you? Since when was your side into the whole sex, drugs, and rock and roll thing? Have you read The Song of Solomon lately? I concede the point. Well then, shall we begin? No, we shall not, because there will be no we involved. You are not sitting in on this one, Donna. Oh, please, for old time's sake. You know I love a good phantom story as much as you do. You left me to suffer through Love Never Dies Alone. You do not get to spoil this one for me. Oh, Diva, darling, you know heaven won't have anything to do with that bit of nonsense. You're not going to leave, are you? No. Let's examine the case of the Phantom of the Paradise.
Swan. He has no other name. His past is a mystery, but his work is already a legend.
These are the voyages of the starship Enterprise.
But then, one winter's night, an old beggar woman came to the castle.
In the land of Mordor, in the fires of Mount Doom, the Dark Lord Sauron forged in secret a master ring.
Hey, barging into my court is one thing, but claws off the console. Sorry, trying to find the volume. So yeah, Swan is this uber impresario who put the bomp in the bomp-a-bomp-a-bomp and who's so influential he can make a retro 50s group like the Juicy Fruits a big sensation.
Eddie believed the American people had wonderful, love-giving hearts. His well-publicized end, he considered would send his memorial album to the top of the charts, and it did.
Though really, who doesn't love a good rock ballad about a young musician committing suicide so his album will chart and his next of kin can rake in the royalties? However, Swan is looking for something slightly more contemporary to open his new concert hall, the Paradise, and lo and behold, a young musician somewhat unfortunately named Winslow Leach is taking advantage of the Juicy Fruits intermission at this moment.
All my dreams are lost, I can't sleep, and sleep alone could ease my mind.
He's good, but what's not so good is the lip sync in this movie, which is very erratic in quality. Jessica Harper manages well, but her male co-stars...
And as I live my role, I swore I'd sell my soul for one love.
Not so much. Swan likes Winslow's music, but isn't a big fan of the musician, so he sends his associate Philbin, named for Mary Philbin of the Lon Chaney Phantom, for those of you who keep track of these things, to do a little espionage. Winslow tells Philbin that the song is part of an extensive rock cantata based on the Faust legend. He also has a bit of a temper on him, as shown by his violent reaction when Philbin suggests the Juicy Fruits could do a cover, but Philbin dropping Swan's name is enough to impress him.
Why don't you give him the music? Swan will take a look at it on the plane, and we'll get right back to you. But if you ask me, I think we're going to produce your first album.
Really?
I'm doing the clip. No, you are not doing the clip. Yes, I am doing the clip. I mean it. Do not touch that button. It is a ridiculous running gag, and you do not need to resort to it one more time. Well, do you feel better now? A little, yes. Sin number 2, especially by Phantom archetype standards, Winslow is a pretty dim protagonist, as is evidenced when he lets Philbin walk off with what I assume are the only hard copies of his life's work. Speaking of, for someone who's based his magnum opus on Faust, he takes a remarkably long time to figure out he's right in the middle of his own Faustian bargain. He's not stupid, he's innocent and naive, completely unprepared for the callous, cutthroat world of the music industry, and crushed by those who value sensation above art. Call it what you want, he's proof that Dark Helmet was right.
Evil will always triumph, because good is dumb.
A month later, Winslow has not heard back from Swan, and the secretary at Swan's Death Records label is under strict orders not to let him go through the door. Winslow is nothing if not persistent, however, and sneaks onto the grounds of Swan's Manor after hours.
Never thought I'd get to meet the devil.
Oh, I just got hit over the head with the subtext. Don't worry, those horns should absorb the impact. Inside, Swan is auditioning singers for Winslow's music and the Paradise's debut, and Winslow decides he's perfectly alright with another singer performing his work, as long as the singer is an in-her-prime Jessica Harper.
All my dreams are lost, and I can't sleep.
Harper's character, Phoenix, is impressed to be talking with the song's composer and asks for help landing a backup singer part, which is a bit like the old joke about the starlet and the screenwriter. Sorry? Look, just Google it after the case or something, okay? It proves to be a moot point anyway, as Phoenix doesn't take well to Swan's literal casting couch.
I just can't do enough that way. I came here to sing.
Doesn't even sound like an audition.
Leave me alone.
I'm sorry, did you tell him who I am?
Winslow, sweetheart, that's really not the best thing to say to a woman who's just been sexually assaulted. When does he start sabotaging performances and murdering theater personnel? I think that'll bump him up a notch on the likability scale. Winslow's own attempts to get Swan's attention come to naught, though he does get a glimpse of the man himself by dressing in drag and sneaking into a girl-on-girl orgy. I still can't figure out if casting Paul Williams in the Mephistopheles role is the worst idea in this entire movie or the best. You do have to admit the irony of the diminutive cherubic Williams as the embodiment of evil is rather clever. It is, and I feel like a stronger actor could have really knocked the concept out of the park. Not that Williams is terrible, there are moments when his Swan is sinister, manipulative, even slightly tragic. But there are also moments when you never quite forget you're looking at Paul Williams, human muppet and composer of the likes of this.
Someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me.
Are you calling this a sin, then? No, but it's not a saving grace, either. It is what it is. Unusual and imperfect, but not awful. Swan has Winslow tossed out, and then, because Winslow has proven spectacularly terrible when it comes to getting the hint, takes extra measures to get him out of the picture.
Mr. Swan said he had it on him.
What do you know? Smack, Jack.
There's a switch. 2 black cops planting evidence on a white man. Yeah, complete with ridiculously overinflated prison sentence. Winslow's first drug offense nets him life in... Really, De Palma? You just had to go there. Things go from bad to worse as Winslow's teeth are extracted and replaced with metal falsies, and after 6 months of unjust imprisonment, he snaps and escapes via a Benny Hill sketch. Winslow's mad rampage takes him to the Death Records printing press, where he wreaks havoc to the tune of an ironic chamber orchestra.
Hey, get away from that record press!
Why am I not surprised that Winslow gets disfigured in the clumsiest manner possible? And I'm sorry, but can I rant on something for a bit? You probably will no matter what. Oh, go polish your halo. What is the deal with phantom adaptations making his disfigurement an accident? In the original novel, the character was born deformed, and it was the central tragedy of his existence, possessing brilliant gifts while forever denied the chance to use them in a constructive manner. Why did these movies take that away by having him scarred with acid or burned in a fire or cursed by a devil dwarf? I suspect it has something to do with the Hays Code. Wouldn't surprise me, the Hays Code was responsible for a lot of bullshit, but elaborate. Gladly. The Motion Picture Production Code, or the Hays Code as it is commonly known, placed very strict limits on the presentation of behaviors perceived as immoral. In particular, films were expected to refrain from treating criminals as sympathetic, which, as written, Phantom of the Opera does. The accidental disfigurement might be a way of working around that. The character's violence was made understandable by resulting from the violence done to him. And by the time the code had fallen out of practice, the device just stuck. What, so being rejected by society for something he was born into wasn't a good enough explanation for being that pissed off? Well, nobody ever accused the Hays Code of appreciating nuance. That's Lucifer's own truth. Winslow's death is declared the same day the Paradise's opening is announced, but the reports are greatly exaggerated, as Winslow is now lurking about the Rock Palace's backstage, sporting a snazzy black outfit and bird mask, and planting bombs in the dress rehearsal. The split-screen sequence, and early use of one of De Palma's signature techniques, is literally the Hitchcockian definition of suspense, the audience waiting for a bomb that the characters don't know is there to explode. It's very effective, especially with the way the bomb's ticking plays against the music. Which invites the question, where was the skilled direction for the first half hour of the movie? Sin number 4 is the uneven tone of the movie. This is one of Brian de Palma's earliest feature films, and I get the feeling he was still playing around with the tricks in his toolbox to see what worked. As a result, the mood is kind of muddled. The first act plays like a broad spoof, while the second is more of a darker satire, and the third goes for gory horror flick. Where it works, and there are lots of places where this movie works, it's great, but where it doesn't work, it's alienating. Oh, leave it to you to find the cloud behind the silver lining. It's in the job description. Swan sees Winslow hanging about the rafters after the rehearsal gets bombed, and being the affably evil guy that he is, he takes it in stride when Winslow pulls a knife on him and offers to make peace. Winslow is in no position to object, mostly because the record press also destroyed his larynx. True to his word, at least on the surface, Swan invites Winslow to listen in on singer auditions for the Faust cantata, and lo and behold, who should show up but Winslow's immortal beloved?
Phoenix. Swan here. I want you to answer a question for me.
Yes?
What would you give me to sing?
Anything you wanted.
I'm trying to think of a worse thing she could have said in this situation, but I don't think it exists. After fitting him with a new prosthetic voice box, Swan offers Winslow a deal. Winslow stops with the phantoming and reworks his Faust for the Paradise's grand opening, and Swan will give Winslow writing credit and Phoenix the lead role. Winslow has by now caught on that Swan is not to be trusted, though not so much so that he sees a problem with signing a large contract written in ominous calligraphy with his own blood.
Party of the first part gives the party of the second part, and his associates full power to do with him at their pleasure, to rule, to send, to fetch, or carry him or his, be it either body, soul, flesh, blood, or goods. What does that mean?
Oh, that's a transportation clause.
But as Swan points out, Winslow doesn't have a whole lot of options, so a deal with the other side it is. And so Winslow goes into a composing frenzy, and also a rather good time-passing montage.
All the good guys and the bad guys that I've been, all the devils that disturb me, and the angels that defeated them somehow.
But Swan, mostly out of ego and general dickishness, goes back on his end of the bargain and demotes Phoenix to backup while handing the star turn to his own up-and-coming talent, who he introduces at a press conference that, in a notable quirk, doesn't allow any cameras outside of Swan's personal entourage.
Gentlemen.
No! What do you mean, no? I mean, you are not calling a sin on the obviously superimposed Death Records logo. That is not De Palma's fault, and you know it. Okay, granted, De Palma was forced to change the name of the record label from Swan Song to Death Records after getting sued by Led Zeppelin, and this resulted in some pretty hasty post-production work to remove most of the references, but it's still distracting. They did the best they could with the time and budget allowed them, so leave it be. But leave it? Fine. But I'm not happy about it. Then why don't we move on to beef? That should make you feel better. Ah, yes, beef. Meet Beef, Swan's new star, glam rocker extraordinaire, and this movie's saving grace. Garrett Graham is obviously enjoying himself immensely with this character, and even though Beef is pretty much a sassy camp gay stereotype, the focus of the humor is not his sexuality so much as his prima donna attitude. I beg your pardon? Figure of speech. Ray Kennedy as Graham's voice dub is also pretty good. Not all of the movie's satire on the excesses of rock music manages to land, but Beef is definitely a bullseye. And come on, you gotta love a character who delivers lines like this.
I mean, the karma's so thick around here, you need an aqualung to breathe.
Winslow isn't too happy when he finds out he's been had, especially since Swan tries to cask of Amontillado him out of the picture. The mortar hasn't set yet, which is fortunate for Winslow, but unfortunate for the contractors and also Beef, who is using a mix of cocaine and warm showers to calm his pre-show jitters.
Never sing my music again. Not here, not anywhere. Do you understand? Never again.
Beef, proving he has more sense than 90% of Carlotta characters, not to mention most of the characters in this particular iteration, is ready to get the here out. But Philbin thinks it's the drugs talking, which, to be fair, is a reasonable assumption with this crowd, and ushers Beef on stage, where for some reason Faust has taken a turn for the Frankenstein.
Life at last, salutations from the other side. I can see that you're the devil's pride.
Alas and alack, Beef's Mick Jagger stylings are ended permanently thanks to Winslow and a neon lightning bolt. Because honestly, you know a good old-fashioned chandelier would be hard to come by in a place like this. Philbin finds Phoenix and goes, "Look, no pressure, but Beef was murdered so you'd get your big break, so get out there and sing before someone else dies, okay?" And despite that rather unsettling prospect, Phoenix excels with the movie's best song.
Our love is a strong love, babe. We give it all and still receive.
The crowd goes wild, which, given some of the things they go wild for in this movie, might not be the greatest compliment, but success instantly goes to Phoenix's head nonetheless.
I'll do anything you want. I owe you everything. Just give me that crowd again.
Okay, I'm confused because Phoenix's arc is taking some sharp hairpin turns here. The first time we meet her, she's storming out of Swan's house because she doesn't want to sleep her way to the top, and now all of a sudden she's willing to give him body and soul over one standing ovation? How did that happen? Are you a demon saying that fame and fortune cannot tempt people away from good principles? No, I'm saying that is a process, and one which I would like to see more time devoted to in this case. Give Swan time to properly seduce Phoenix, let her become accustomed to the trappings of stardom, and give her reason to fear they might be taken away from her. I'd like to see a version of this story where Phoenix is the central protagonist, and Winslow's story is told mainly in flashback. I think her character journey, especially as it parallels his, would be much more compelling. Winslow intercepts Phoenix as she tries to avoid her newly minted mob of fans, but his warnings that Swan destroyed his life and will destroy her too fall on deaf ears, partially because Phoenix is starstruck, and partially because being a murdering lunatic isn't helping Winslow's credibility. So she drives off with Swan to his appropriately gothic mansion, where they proceed to canoodle. Canoodle? Where are you from? Come from away? Winslow doesn't take this well and forgoes the usual jealous rampage and skips right to the losing all will to live part. Except that there are complications, as according to the fine print in Winslow's contract, or in this case the large and obvious print, he can't die unless Swan dies first, at which point Winslow's self-inflicted fatal wound will take effect. Winslow is pretty cool with these terms, but offing Swan isn't exactly easy either.
I'm under contract too.
Swan and Phoenix set their wedding for the televised finale of Faust. Wait, back the truck up. Sorry. When did that happen? The finale was set for the following day, right?
Paradise is just beginning. Tomorrow night, Phoenix will finish Faust.
I thought so. So Swan and Phoenix got engaged and had their wedding announcement on the cover of Rolling Stone and arranged a live television production in under 24 hours? You're nitpicking! I don't care. You wouldn't let me complain about the logo switch, but I'm taking this one. Oh, fine. Meanwhile, Winslow sneaks into Swan's inner sanctum, which you'd think Swan would have better security around, what with his nemesis lurking around the premises. Pride before the fall, darling! There, Winslow finds a video of Swan dated 1953, where he declares his intention to commit suicide because, in true rock and roll fashion, he wants to die before he gets old.
Why not? What? Stay young forever. I'm real. And I'll leave if you want. But you did call me.
The boss offers Swan a Dorian Gray deal with his recorded image aging in his stead. To maintain the bargain, Swan must tape and view himself every day to remember what he bought, and if the video contract is ever destroyed, Swan goes with it. Happily, this is one situation that Winslow's violent outbursts are well suited for. Winslow also finds out Swan got Phoenix under contract while she was high. Point of order, souls cannot be contracted while under the influence. Yeah, I know that and you know that, but they don't. Swan is also planning the ultimate ratings stunt by having Phoenix assassinated on live television. Thankfully, Winslow has time to run to the rescue, thanks to the Bob Mackie version of Swan Lake and one of those elaborate, some assembly required rifles all assassins seem to have. Winslow throws off the hitman's aim, taking out Philbin instead, and in a reversal of the usual scenario, the Phantom unmasks someone else.
Oh my god! Your face! What's happened to your face?
Wow, that was fast. Well, the destruction of Swan's contract clearly... No, that's not what I meant. Swan made his deal 20 years ago, right? He can't be more than, 40? 45 tops? One must account for the effects of unchecked hedonism and consorting with the forces of darkness. Come on, this level of physio-spiritual decay wouldn't set in for at least a century, and you know it. Yes, but again, the movie doesn't. Swan tries to strangle Phoenix, but Winslow saves her by stabbing Swan with a bird headpiece, points for improvisation, effectively ending them both. Too late, Phoenix recognizes the unmangled half of Winslow's face, and she mourns him while the oblivious crowd parties on. Because, hey, that's good satire. Well, that was... Yes, that was indeed. I believe my erstwhile colleague said it best. Phantom of the Paradise is unusual and imperfect, but not awful. The roughest section is definitely the first half hour, which tends to be a bit too broad and wacky. But once Winslow becomes the Phantom and De Palma settles in a bit, the movie finds its sweet spot. It's a classic example of a cult film in that you'll either find the whole thing wonderfully bizarre or just plain silly. Well, that was quite enjoyable, thank you. You mean that? Even with all the sniping and nitpicking? Of course. Just like old times. Yeah, I guess it was. So what do you suppose happened to him?
Who, dear?
Winslow. Where do you suppose he went after he died? I mean, he did sell his soul and all.
True, but sacrificing himself to save the woman he loved and destroy the author of his grief must count for something.
But it doesn't work like that. You can't just erase a laundry list of evil deeds with one selfless act.
You know, for someone who is fascinated by redemption stories, you're not very optimistic about the prospect. I wonder what that says.
What can I say? Everyone loves a good fairy tale.
And all fairy tales are grounded in truth. Take care, Diva. I do miss our conversations.
What's this? Oh, she knows we don't celebrate down here. It's the thought that counts, I suppose. So let it be recorded. This session of the Infernal Court in musical hell is now adjourned.